Hi.
Hi there.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm Nick. This is Emily.
Hello.
And
Hi.
this is the CU Denver Film Club. And
And I'm Walter. I'm behind the camera. I'll come in front and see you for a second. We're just playing with technology here.
Cool.
Thank you so much for doing this. We're so
Yeah.
excited to have you.
Cheers. Yeah, you've had almost everyone from the show come here now.
Well, all the important people. Don't tell Ryan I said that.
yeah, so what we're gonna do is we've collected some clips from the show, and we've just screened episode 2, the night shift, and so we have some shots from the episode that Walter is gonna play via screen share, and we'll mute it, and then you can just talk over each clip, and then we could pause it after each scene, and then we can go into more depth on the lighting and setups and kind of problems that you guys faced in that particular setup. So Walter, you want to go for our first scene?
Yeah, can you see that, Christine?
Yeah.
It starts with the very important credit. I thought we'd start there.
Walter, if you want to mute that so she can talk over it. Thank you. Yeah, so talk about doing this. I mean, you guys are doing kind of the Chungking Express homage here, it seems. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
technically, how does that effect work on your end?
So I guess, for this, we did a little bit of testing to just kind of figure out the best frame rate. So I think we landed with like 3 frames per second at 360 degrees shutter. And I think the thing that's important is that like when you play it back, it won't exactly show the effect. You kind of have to bring it into, the edit bay to like really play it back properly. And this episode for me was really interesting because I've never shot for Ryan. And actually this was the last episode we shot of the whole series.
Oh, okay.
Most of the show took place in upstate New York, and this particular one needed to be on, on Route 66. And I knew that Ryan was going to direct this one, but Steve was actually going to shoot it. But he became unavailable because he had a feature. So I was supposed to be wrapped at this point, but they asked me to stay to do this episode with Ryan. So I was obviously super excited. But we didn't have a lot of prep time. Because I was shooting in New York, Ryan was in LA, and then I think Knives Out, he was finishing Knives Out because it was premiering at TIFF, basically one of these weekends. So unlike the whole show where I've been prepping for 2 weeks with the director and then shooting for 2 weeks, I didn't have that luxury. So I only prepped on the ground once I got there for 4 days. And then I only had 4 hours to prep with Ryan, which is just really kind of crazy. But what's great about Ryan though is that he has such a visual eye that when you guys are done sharing, I'm gonna share my screen because he actually storyboarded the whole episode.
Yeah.
And so what I was doing in my prep, I was just trying to make sure that I'm prepped enough so that whatever Ryan wanted to do, I had the means to do it. Not exactly knowing what he had in mind just yet. So when it came to this, he was like, "Oh, I want to do the like Wong Kar-wai effect," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I was like, how do we do that? Let me just like experiment, So it was just literally trial and error, like playing with the shutter speed, and trying to figure out. And what's amazing about the team of filmmakers behind the show is that there's Ryan, there's Steve Yedlin, and there's Jaron Persant, who is, just their combination. They've known each other for like 20 years, and Walter has known them too, along with Lucky, who you also know now. And you're not in it alone. So if you're like, hey, do you guys know how to do this effect? It's not like you're just trying to figure things out on your own. Jaron I don't remember what episode Jaren was doing, but he also wanted to do the effect. So he was like, I tried these things, it didn't work. I tried this, it kind of worked. So maybe you just keep going further to experiment to see what you find, you know? And so my experience on Poker Face was really amazing in that I kind of got immersed in this like, you know, group of friends that have collaborated for over 20 years. And then I'm just kind of coming in and they're like, oh yeah, you're part of the team, like come on over, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you, I want to show you his shot list or his storyboards because it's pretty funny. Like when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. But then when you've seen the episode, you're like, oh, actually you have to allow me to share as well. I think Walter, if you can give me access.
Did I do it or did I not do it?
Let's see.
Oh,
Trying it. Oh yeah, it worked. Okay. So this was from Ryan. So this was the opening shot, the like kind of drone shot of the road. This is looking down the highway. This is the streaky thing. You see the word streaky? We
Yeah.
just watched that truck. This is the zoom in to her in the window. I don't know what this says, but oh, it's Sarah smoking with the red. You see the red? She's smoking her vape. This is zooming out.
And with the
of
red,
window.
I have a question on that. So
Yes.
it's very, in the show, it's very pronounced. Did you guys accentuate that with another light, or was that just the sunrise and you guys got it?
No, I definitely hit a light like next to her and behind her. I totally hit a light. And then I'm gonna I'm gonna share this and something else. So this is how I prep. This is how I shot list. So if you look at shot like setup number 1, Sarah works in the mini mark. That's the setting. Zoom. Sarah's smoking. Add red backlight glow for vape cloud.
Gotcha.
So this is like how my brain works in a very Excel spreadsheet way where, you know, I'm making notes for camera department. I'm writing exactly what the shot is, what specific tools we might need, what zooms we're using, which camera is going to do the shot, where the camera is, if we're on a techno crane or a jib. So I do that first in story order. So that's obviously based on after talking to Ryan and then breaking down the storyboard. And then with each day, you know, obviously you're not shooting in order. So then I'll do one that is based on shooting order. So this is day 1. And we started, I guess, with scene 65. And this is something that I share with the whole team. So I send this to my whole camera department, my whole lighting team. I share it with Ryan. I share it with the ADs. I share it with art department. I basically share it with anyone who wants any knowledge of what's going on that day. And then as I'm using them on set, so many things to share. This is me like writing on it throughout the day. Like we got all these shots, what lens did I use, you know? So I like do this basically every single day. And I have that like all the way to like day 10. So that's basically how I prep. But with Ryan, you know, it was really different than other directors because he already had it all in his head. And he's obviously not only a great writer, director, he's also like an amazing editor. And if he wanted to be, like, he could be a cinematographer, like truly. So in terms of, you know, collaborating with him, a lot of it he had already written here. And then I made little notes for myself, like 11:1 zooms all the way out to reveal Jed. I had written all these little notes to myself as he was talking through the shot list with me. I think we went over this on Saturday afternoon and we were shooting Monday afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah. And so during our prep process, normally when I have 2 weeks, like 10 working days, with a director, I'm making this with them. And talking through all the shots, shot by shot, not it already being drawn. But in this way, it was like, for me, I was like, well, of course, Ryan is already going to know what he wants. So I'm just going to wait for him to like share with me. But before I did that, I asked him questions like, okay, so the, 3 structures, this gas station, the roof, the mini mart, and the subway. Obviously, we need sight lines to all of them. I was like, how much of these spaces do you want to see in relation to each other? And I was like, should I just assume that you want to be able to see everything clearly all the time? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, great. So basically that just meant I had to light the whole world, and I had to like have control of all the structures, all the units in the structures, and also all the units to light the street. And so the first time I went to the strip, I had landed at like night. I don't even know what time it was. And I was like, oh, I should probably go see the strip at night because I'm shooting at night. And when I was there were so many streetlights that were out. And I'm like, okay, that's not really going to work because I should assume that we want to see at least a mile. And so the next day I called the locations person and I was like, hey, so I don't know if we can, but could we talk to the city and get them to swap all the bulbs so that this stretch is like fully lit? And they're like, okay, we're gonna try. And they actually did send someone out to do that. But some of it they like just couldn't repair because the street light itself was like broken. It wasn't just the bulb. And so then I know we're not watching the clips, but I feel like I'm giving you a general, which will probably answer most of your questions.
Yeah, this is great.
So what I did was, I'm sure you guys already know about this app, but there's this app called Sunseeker. And what's great about this app is that this was where the gas station was, like the actual like coordinates of this space, and I could see the sun path. So the Whiting Brothers station, that is where the gas station was. And then this tack shop was the mini mart, and art department built the subway. So the subway didn't exist. And then where the thing that says sunset is where the diner was. But all we had was actually just the neon sign. We didn't even shoot the diner there. So with this, having this knowledge, I would know that like, okay, this is the direction of the sun. And then you can also get this information that is, when is sunrise, when is blue hour, when is golden hour, when is civil twilight. So you can really know like, okay, when will it be dark? And if we're doing a sunset scene, how much time do I actually have to like do that? So I always, when I'm scouting, I just like screen cap this so I have it. And then this is the restaurant where we were gonna shoot the diner scene. But then one of our actors got sick, so we couldn't shoot it. And then we actually shot it like outside of Vegas. Because we ended up going to Vegas for in Laughlin to shoot all the kind of exterior stuff for episode 1. And that was our actual last block of shooting. So that actress came back and we had to basically find a diner that would fit the exterior of that Sunset Hotel so that it would still kind of work. If you were watching the show, you wouldn't be like, oh, that doesn't really match.
Right.
If you actually watch it again and you look at the diner scenes and you look at the exterior of that Roadhouse or whatever it was called, it doesn't truly match, but it was like the best thing we could find. So I make this, then I also did that, the same thing. And then this is what I had for daytime scenes. So this is me drawing out the strip for my G&E team so that they would know where to put condors, basically. So this was week 2. I think this is week 1. So this is the full night work. So up here is the subway. there's the Subway, there's the Mini Mart, there's the tech shop. Those are the trucks. That's Marge's truck. This is the sodium vapor. These are things that I added to, I think just like make sure that these were specifically sodium vapor. And then I think this one, and this little one, art department actually brought me just like streetlights so I could place them wherever I wanted to kind of give more texture. And then down here was that diner motel. There's the red neon sign. This was another truck to basically block the diner because it wasn't really a diner. And then these are other condors that I had so that I knew I could reach certain areas to make sure I could light certain places. So I basically needed, how many is here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lifts. And then I had another condor standing by that I wrote to extend streetlight or moonlight effect, depending on where we were looking. So I had 6 lifts for the night work. But in addition to that, each structure, so the Subway, the Mini Mart, and the garage, I had G&E swap out all the lights in there. So I had complete control of every single set wherever I was shooting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about lighting the interior of the Minimart? Because that's kind of a hard location.
Oh, it was so hard.
Yeah, go into that.
Let me see if I have, I might have some photos of that space. Let's see. I have all the art department like breakdowns
Gotcha.
of the spaces and how they built it. I think this one is the Mini Mart. Yeah. So let's see, share. So this was the Mini Mart, and can you see my arrow when I like?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So this, I think these 2 windows didn't exist. So we added these windows so that she could see the Subway, which was on the right side of the, would be on the right side of the screen. What I did was during the day, I had the grips put like flexi ND over the windows. Because we were shooting in New Mexico and like it is so bright. It was like July, so it was super, super bright. And I had to put NDs on the windows or I wouldn't be able to see outside. The inside, I had swapped all the bulbs inside, so they were all Titans. And then I'm pretty sure I had, when we were outside looking in, I had like an M18 just giving it ambient, and I pulled the gels off the windows so that you could actually see inside if you were exposing outside and trying to look inside. So it was like a really tricky location because I felt like, you know, the stop difference was like 6 or 7 stops, like something like so kind of outrageous that it's really hard to shape it also when you do that because you're just like, okay, I just need to like bring up this room. So that was like pretty interesting. And I think the first day we were shooting this interior, they were finishing up in New York. So Jaren and Natasha were shooting 108, which was the one that Natasha directed. And so most of my team that was in New Mexico, I had to hire a brand new lighting team because they weren't coming to New Mexico. So I was able to get the board up and one of the electricians to come, but they didn't land until like Sunday night. So they only had like Monday morning to program over 300 units, which is just like really kind of insane. And I also think that at the time when we were shooting this, they were also shooting The Curse, and they were shooting another show, maybe like the Kristen Stewart movie. And there basically wasn't enough gear for the 3 shows. And I remember we were doing this interior and we only had half the amount of bulbs I needed for this interior. And I was like, what's going on? And they were like, we ran out of gear here. Like, we literally have no more lights left in this city. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess we have to like steal it from inside the garage because we're not in there today. But that morning I was like, oh no, like we're not going to be ready. But luckily, the G&E team was excellent. And so when I walked in there and I realized what happened, like they were able to just like reallocate some of the bulbs. Because I think that night we were basically going into splits. So we really needed to have almost all the sets ready. So that was a little nerve-wracking. Yeah.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Were there any particular, so you had a lot of obstacles sort of lighting sort of last minute. Were there any kind of opportunities that came from that to make better creative decisions for the episode that wouldn't have happened had you not had all those obstacles leading up to it?
I feel like for me, being over prepared is better. And so when I asked for so many condors, inevitably something will go wrong. And so having that extra condor, I remember at one point being like, oh no, like this, I forget which condor wasn't working by the garage. And I was like, okay, we have to like run down the block and get the other one that's like standing by. So I think it's like when you kind of have like a backup insurance plan, and you can notice issues before they become like major fires.
Right.
That's like the only way to like get ahead of it. I mean, I was also honestly like so nervous because it was my first time working with Ryan and I was like, oh my God, I want to do a good job. But I can't control like all these things that are going wrong, And I've also, when I started the job, I was able to shadow Ryan and Steve for like 3 days when they were shooting episode 4 or it was episode 9. Episode 1 and 9, they were kind of doing it together. And I was just, the first thing you see when you see them work is speed. Like they are so simpatico and so, and also Steve Yedlin, he's just like a genius with the lighting board, that he is basically his own board up in a way that he can just like control the whole room and like make 20 adjustments in like 2 minutes. Whereas I have to play the game of telephone to be like, hey, so what's that light in the corner doing? Like what percentage is that? Okay, I need more. Like, okay, now we're gonna get the board up and then like change it, but with him, it's just like everything's like he thinks in, he just does it. So he mitigates that like telephone process. I'm trying to think if there was anything specific that like came up as a result of like no prep time,
Yeah. Walter, if you want to get the third clip up, I think we kind of already talked about the gas station, which I think was our second clip. So if you want to go to 3.
Sure. Hey, Christian, before we move on, just to satisfy my dorkiness, is this a rear window shot? Is this from Rear Window? Was there a conversation about stuff like that?
Not really. I feel like we didn't really get into I feel like the Rear Window thing, like we didn't even talk about because I feel like we both understood that it was like kind of the reference. You know what I mean? But I mean, I guess yes, but we never actually like said it. No one actually said Rear Window.
Right. And this scene where we're going to is maybe Psycho with the taxidermy.
Oh yeah.
We'll let it go because it's probably just me, right? Is this it, Nick?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So what would you want to ask about this?
Yeah, Christine, if you just want to tell us kind of, how'd you approach lighting this scene?
Yeah, how did we do this? It's like so hard to remember because this was like
Right.
almost 2 years ago now, which is so crazy. So I feel like my approach kind of now in general, inclusive of the show, is like, how can you, in especially a small space, because this room was not really big, is like, how do you light from outside so that space inside? So I'm pretty sure I just had lights like literally outside that window, like coming in, and I probably had some units above. There was probably like fluorescent housing, so I probably had some tubes in there. And we always walked around with like this little scoop light just to like kind of fill in eyes. So it's literally like one of those like metal scoops with like a Nix bulb in it. And we would just walk around with that to like fill in everybody's eyes. So I'm pretty sure that's what I did here, where I just like tried to light everything from the outside to not take up space in there. Because for the most part, the whole show was 2 cameras. And really trying to be able to fit 2 cameras in there, both on dolly, just takes up so much space.
Yeah. How are you shaping the light on his close up there? Because you're getting a nice contrast, but it's not really the wall is still evenly lit. How are you doing that?
I feel so this room had 4 big windows. So like there's 2 obviously behind her, and then there's 2 on the opposite, so like on his left. So I'm pretty sure I had something outside coming in, but like diffused, you know.
Sure.
And then I probably like tried to shape it a little bit from the inside, but I also used some of the shades, like they had like pull down shades. So I'm sure I used some of that too to kind of give it like a more naturalistic shape versus really walking in a bunch of, like film equipment. I usually try to lean into what art department has there. And so for me, it's super important to kind of, when they're building the sets, to really ask them if they have any work in progress stuff that I can look at to see if I can give any notes. And also, like, if there's any window treatment stuff, I would try to say, hey, could you get some like different density rolling shades that I can use for different purposes? So that's kind of how I like to approach it, just so that how you're cutting the light feels like what the space would be if the sun was in the perfect spot, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
You've talked about how you had such little time to prepare, and I'm assuming, I don't know, did you have like any access to the location before you started shooting?
Yeah, so I got there 4 days before, and I feel like I should just look at my phone to the sets were like not ready. Like they really built things from scratch. Let's see. Um yeah, it was like definitely not ready. I remember walking around and being like, okay, so I guess this is the mini mart. But it doesn't like this. It was like I'd walk around and things would look like that, just like completely unfinished.
Yeah. So with so little time to repair, and then also you had so many like problems come up, do you have like programs that you use to do overheads and like plan out your lighting setups, and then you are able to like quickly adjust once you see what it's actually like, or what's your philosophy coming into that?
Well, I think, for the most part, like with the resources of this show, it just not obviously it's tough because we were in New Mexico, so we exhausted the amount of gear that was there. But for the most part, like we had such an amazing grip and electric team, like just in general, that when on shows like this, you have your shooting crew and you have your rigging crew. So when you go on a tech scout, you have both rigging gaffer and both rigging gaffer, rigging key grip, shooting gaffer. And so what's great about that is that your riggers get started before your shooting crew does. And so they're putting everything in place. And because of the nature of a show like this, so when I'm prepping, Jaren's shooting. When Jaren's shooting, I'm prepping. And so we don't necessarily cross paths in that way, like the DPs don't, but the shooting crew is always shooting. and the rigging crew is always rigging. So like if I'm in prep and I know the riggers are working on something, I can go and like check on it. And then especially if we're on a stage, I can walk the set and, you know, just be like, oh, hey, like I actually think this window has to be bigger. Or I know you guys talked to Lucky about episode 5 with the old ladies. So in that like bungalow, so like their house, I had art department add a skylight in the middle of that set because the set was actually so big that if I tried to do my usual like from the window lighting in, I would see my unit and I wouldn't be able to actually reach far enough. So I was like, hey, can you build a skylight? So that was kind of amazing that I just walked up to, you know, art department. I was like, hey, could you build me a skylight? They're like, where? And then I told them exactly where. And then they're like, how big? And I told them exactly how big. And then I walked in and it was done, you know, and I think like, obviously those resources are like, I just did a feature. I just wrapped on Sunday. Or I just wrapped on Friday. And that it was like, I would ask for shears and I'd walk in and there would be no shears. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't even afford shears. Like I would ask for like a lamp and they'd be like, oh, we only have like 3 for this house. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? So on projects where you have the resources, the problem solving is so much easier because you can actually just like solve it. Whereas solve it with like resources. Whereas like on a feature, you're just like, okay, well, I'm not shooting in the living room. Can we use those chairs for the bedroom? And then when we go back to the living room, just put them back. You know, I literally had to like do that. Where I'll be like, okay, we have 3 lamps. So I guess this room will have this lamp and this room will have this lamp. And, you know, and then you just try to figure out which corner will be seen the most and put it there. But problem solving on this and the resources available made it actually much easier to work. You know, you would just ask for something, for the most part, it would get approved. And if it wasn't like you can't, if you ask for like 10 things, maybe you'll get 8. And you're like, okay, I could work with 8, you know, but like the other stuff I'd ask for one thing and I would get nothing, you know? So I don't know. It's like really good training to work on the stuff where there are no resources and then work on things where you're like, oh, if it's just about me planning and my ability to plan ahead and I can get the thing that I want, then I'm just going to do my homework. You know what I mean? Because I always had breakdowns for my G&E team before we did the tech scout. Like I wouldn't walk on the tech scout and be like, oh, maybe we'll do that. I'll be like, I need a light over here. It has to be in the air. So you can decide how tall, but I need a light there, you know? And I want to do this kind of effect, or I want to, yeah, or I need this lens for this particular day. And I would already have all the breakdowns ready for my team so that it was just organized. Because, you know, they're working with they're still actively on another episode. So I feel like if I don't give very clear information, it could just get lost so quickly. And even my shot list, you know, like I said, I send it every night before the shoot day. So that for me, when people walk into set, if they even just read the first 3 lines, they already know what the first 3 things we're doing is. And then I don't have to go to each department and be like, okay, we're going to start with this wide shot over here. And I need this, you know, everything's already on the piece of paper and everyone just like knows that I'll send that now. So it just makes it so much easier. Yeah.
And you guys are doing some pretty great film emulation on Poker Face. Can you talk about how involved you are in that process and walk us through how that changes your workflow a little bit?
So Steve built a LUT for the show. And he had this LUT when, you know, they started shooting and then I came on as they were shooting. So what's interesting about the way like they work versus how I've worked on other sets is like, I will build LUTs on other jobs, but I will have a DIT kind of do live grades in addition to the LUTs. And then all that information gets sent to post. But the way that we worked on Poker Face was like, you never adjust a LUT, you never adjust the CDL, and then you do everything in post, which is like actually kind of the same thing. except it's actually better discipline to be like, instead of raising, you're like, oh, her face is a little dark. Instead of just being lazy and raising her face, you're like, oh, we better walk a light there. You know what I mean? So it's actually like, if you like what, it kind of requires you to really be specific about what you want and not just like, oh, I'll fix it later, you know, kind of vibe. And obviously when you get into post, you can still do little secondary like things to help certain parts. But the film emulation is such a good question because that's obviously not, that's like a thing that you add kind of at the end. So it's not something that we had as a tool on that. But Steve, again, like brilliant Steve, he built that film emulation. Like he like literally wrote the code. And what's actually really funny is I graded all my episodes. I saw it with, you know, I saw it with grain and it looked great. And then I heard that Steve asked Peacock to do basically like a rendering for him with the codec for the streaming platform, and it just didn't look right. And then Steve rewrote the code to make it better, you know, and like I think what's so again amazing about this job for me is like having Steve and Jaren to as like they're so ahead like technologically in the filmmaking space that it's like they were showing me things that I had never seen before, you know, like it's not just like you don't have to take what is available now as the answer. Like you can dig deeper and like create your own answers.
Yeah.
Obviously for me, that's me texting Steve like, hey, what do you think about this? But you know, like they inspire me to like know that you don't have to just accept what is at face value. Because I feel like, you know, at that time, Peacock, the streaming platform was pretty new. And this was obviously one of the premiere shows for it. So, you know, he had the foresight to be like, hey, can you show me how your app or whatever, your streaming platform is ingesting our show? And what will the viewer actually see? Like, that's not something I ever thought to ask. You know, you assume that what you grade is what will be shown, but there's all this other stuff now that like you have no control over. So like you could grade it, you know, you're looking at it in the best possible conditions on the best screens. And then they just like, you know, people are watching on their iPhones and you don't know what like setting the iPhone is, but like, you know, at least if you have a little bit of quality control and like know to ask for that, then, you know, you just have more control over the image that you've created. So that's definitely something I learned from this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people wanting to shoot film right now. I mean, a lot of people here at the school, we'd love to shoot film, but it's expensive. So we turn to emulation, right? And what is great about Steve's code that makes it different than the other sort of power grades or LUTs or film emulation looks out there? Kind of what makes it special?
Well, it seems like I can't speak to like the nitty gritty of how it works, but how it seems like it works to me is that it's reacting to the image, like the grain is reacting to what the image is, and it's not just a filter of like grain, you know, and like there's other software that seems like it's just like, oh, like you turn up the intensity, you turn down the intensity, and what it is what it is. But what Steve has created, it seems like it's actually internalizing like, oh, this is a deep black and this is a highlight, you know, and it seems like within that it recognizes values. So it's emulating in a very smart way and not just like a blanket emulation.
So if you're to go back to Christine of freshman, sophomore film school, what would you tell her? You're speaking essentially to a group of young creatives who are freshmen and sophomores in film school. What do you wish someone had said to you? What do you wish you could say to her back then?
That like, it like you can do it. Like honestly, the other day I opened my mail and I got my local 600 pin of like 10 years of membership. And I in college never thought I would join 600 because I just never thought I would do camera. Like NYU at the time for me was just so toxic. Like the room didn't look like your room, like your room is diverse and, it has like just, it's not just all like cis white men. I felt like my rooms were all cis white men. My professors were cis white men, and they would kind of actively, passive aggressively tell me that I shouldn't take this class. That I'm taking someone else's seat because I'll never make it. And they kind of really told me that. Not in those words, but it was felt, and I actually did drop my senior level of cinematography because I didn't want to feel that way. I was like, well, I don't want to be in a space where I'm not welcomed, and I don't want to be in a space where my teacher doesn't want to teach me. And what Walter is doing, which is so incredible, is like bringing in diverse speakers that show you that there's a place for everyone in this industry. And, now that I've graduated a long time ago, I also speak at NYU a lot, and it's so important for me to like tell the like, young women out there that it's possible. Because it just was not for me. And obviously that is like my own kind of like putting this kind of pressure on myself and like not allowing myself to like become who I've become. But it definitely took, I think I was turning 25 and I was like, I was at a production company like full time. I was like, I have to quit my job because if I stay here, like I'll do fine, like whatever. I love that place, but if I don't allow myself to take a risk before I'm 30, like I'm never gonna do it. And I'm so glad I did because when I did, my community of my friends and my peers and the people I met at that production company all supported me. They were all like, "Oh my God, of course. Like, you want to come and like pull focus? You want to come and operate? You want to come and like, you know, shoot second camera?" Like, so what's really tricky about some of the education system is that, you feel like what's in those walls in your school dictate what's in the world. And that's not true. Like even the way I run my sets now, like when someone new shows up, I immediately go up to them like, "Hey, what's your name?" And it's like a PA or it's like a day player, someone who's not even in any of my departments, but it's a sense of community. Like those are the things that matter, but just like respect for each other and also knowing that like, especially when you're young, um, you don't know if the person next to you is going to become like the next big producer, director, screenwriter, DP, whatever, anything. They're human, right? And so if you treat someone with respect, 15 years later, they're going to remember you. And so much of like the opportunities I've been given now as an adult is because of all these relationships I had when I was a kid. And I was just like, "Oh, you need help on your film? I'll come help you. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to boom? I'll boom. I don't know anything about sound, but I'll do it, and like those things matter, right? Like when you show up for people genuinely, um, those are the things that matter. So like even if someone says you can't do it, it's irrelevant what they think because you have to believe you can do it. And even if you don't know how to do it, the best thing to say is, "I don't know how to do it." Like don't walk into a space and be like, "Oh, well, I've never DP'd before, but I'm just going to walk around and act like I know what I'm doing." But then, when you fail, you've just kind of hurt yourself. But if you walk in and you're like, "Hey, I've never done this before. I know this amount of stuff, but, I'm really looking forward to working with this gaffer who will help me bring my vision to life." And then you learn from them. And then it becomes more of a collaboration than like you're alone on this island. Because filmmaking can't be that, right? Like literally the director can't make a film by themselves, even if they tried. It's like physically impossible. So I wish I just had a guest speaker like myself to be like, like you can do it. Like, don't listen to the toxic negative voices, because honestly, those will always be there. But if you just stay true to yourself and who you are as a person, that's gonna like guide you to who and what you'll become.
Did we talk before, Christine, about that scene from The Last Crusade where Indy is standing over the abyss, right? And he holds his hands, his heart, and he steps off into the abyss. I want the other part of what you said too is like, you can't really do what you should be doing until you stop what you're doing now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to like take that risk and like take that leap of faith, right? And like, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work out, and then you do something else, right? But I would hate to be, like in my 50s and think about what I could have done when I was younger. And when you can like take the financial risk, that's really when you should do it, because the price of living is outrageous. But like, if you don't have kids yet, you don't have like a home or like these crazy expenses, you can go and like PA on something for a low rate, or like help your friends with a music video on the weekend. And like, those are the experiences that really matter more than like anything.
Walter, do you have any more
But
questions?
I'm gonna hand it back to you.
No, you're good. Thank you, Walter. So on Poker Face, and this can be for any episode,
Mhm.
there a particular setup or a particular scene that was tough for you, or just kind of interesting? Yeah, some kind of variable that you weren't accounting for, and how did you like that? And this can be across the whole series.
What was so great about Poker Face is that every episode is like wildly different.
Yeah.
So my first episode that I shot was the one with Chloe Sevigny with the rock band. And that is unlike any of the other ones, right? So like, that was my first one. Then my next one was with Lucky, with the old ladies, which is just like also completely different than any other ones. And then the next one I shot after that was the car racing one. And then this one, the 102. So I feel like with every episode, I learned something different. But the one for me that I think I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? Was 106. I think it became 107, the car racing one. Let me see. I feel like I might have a clip of it. So I'm going to see if I can find it. But it is the part when Natasha is trying to she's trying to escape Charles Melton, like in the tow truck. And the way that we shoot this also is we don't I don't know if I have it. We don't normally shoot the actual actors like in a moving vehicle. We have the stunt doubles do that. So we always have the actors, we shoot them in blue screen and then we comp them back in. Pretty sure I have it on Vimeo. And so for that particular one, it was really important to me that you had a sense of this like tow truck gaining on her. And it like, how when you're driving and someone turns on their brights and it hits that mirror and you're like, oh my God, like that's so I really wanted that effect to hit Natasha's face with it. Hold on, I'm looking at my Vimeo now. I'm pretty sure I have it. Or do you guys have the episodes pulled up, or like how does this work? Or did you guys clip them?
No,
We
we
just
clipped
clipped from episode 2 only.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't know if I have it, but so what I did was I had, there's like different departments, and one of them is the picture cars department. So we knew we had a tow truck, and the tow truck, because it looked great, it was vintage and the headlights were really weak. And I was like, okay, like this is beautiful, but like I need some like fog lights. Like we need to add some like LED fog lights. So the picture car guy like did add like I think like 4 lights for me. And then I had our gaffer like take the XY coordinates of it and then basically make them all tungsten so that in the world of like, you know, I feel like everything is now like very blue and clean white, all the street lights. So I was like, I really want like a tungsten effect on this. So we gelled all the LEDs so they would be 32. And then I came up with this idea with my key grip and my gaffer, and I was like, I really want the effect of like the car swooping in. Like, how do we do that? And so they built this. I have a video of it. They built this truss that hung from the beams, and they put, I think it was like maybe two tweenies and like 4 AX5s or something like that, so that it had like LED quality, and also it also had the quality of tungsten. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah, we can.
Yeah, so they built this truss, you see that?
Yeah.
And so we swung it around so that it would hit her in the face. This is not a great BTS video of it, but there's the electrician like holding the truss so that he could swing it in. But then along with that, we also had this our programmer or board op built this really cool pixel map for me. So it looks like they're traveling under a light.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's our stand-in. And then I think I also had them like swoop in that other light so that you can feel the effect of that like truss. So that was really fun. How do you bridge the gap between like blue screen and like reality to bring more practical elements into the blue screen so that we're not just shooting Natasha against like a blue wall, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was fun.
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all those pre-production materials with us. We're all about to shoot our own movies, so it's really helpful.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's helpful.
That's fun.
Inspiring. We're at time here, so we'll let you go. But thank you very much for coming out.
Yeah,
It's
thank you so
yeah,
much.
your work is inspiring to all of us.
Hey,
Of course.
last thing, Christine, I saw something on your Instagram about an internship that you were offering. Are you still doing that?
So I still have an active Google link, like a spreadsheet. So it's I guess it's like a survey or a questionnaire, and it's for mentorship and shadowing. So what I'm gonna try and do, and I've been talking to Jaren about it, is when we start the next season of Poker Face, I really want to see if we can have someone else like a different person shadow every week. So that they like we can basically have, if we shoot for 6 months, we can have 30 people come through. Because I did that on Z-Way. I had a different person come in every week, so that they can just like literally shadow and like ask questions. So yeah, you guys should fill it out if you'll be in New York. Yeah, so I'm trying to do that. And then I also, at the very end of that questionnaire, I ask if it's okay if I share it with other DPs that are offering similar things. So I have shared this list with other people. And you know, the people that are on this list that have filled it out, it doesn't have to be New York. Like you could be anywhere in the world. And like if someone happens to be in that city, like they might call you, you know? But I think it's just important to like create opportunities and also a space where people can come observe and then actually ask questions. I feel like when I was invited to set before, I mean, it's my own thing again. Like I was too afraid to actually ask questions. I was like, okay, cool, this was great. And then I wouldn't like ask any follow-up questions. But now whenever I have people shadow me on set, you know, maybe the first 2 days I like don't have time to talk to you. But then by the third day, I'm like, okay, let's have lunch on Friday. And I want you to like tell me all the things you saw, the things you have questions about. And then after the job, I'll reach out to them again and be like, okay, so like, was there anything else that you thought of in the time that we were together where you have any questions? Because I just feel like there's too much gatekeeping, and it's also really hard to like think of questions when you're just watching, right? But you guys have come up with some very good questions. So I feel like if any of you were on set, you would have really good questions. So yeah, Walter, I'll email that to you, that link, just so you have it, and then you can totally share it with the class.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much. We're really grateful.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with your films. Hopefully I'll see you guys on set.
Yes. Good luck on season 2.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Yeah.